It's Jean Kuhn, and we are back for another Milk Crate moment. And today, my guest is I met this woman, Terry Lohrbeer, at PodFest 2024 in January in Orlando. I spoke there, and I think we sat at a table and we connected really fast. We exchanged business cards. And she said something. Her podcast was called. I'm gonna let you say what your podcast was called.
Kick-Ass Boomers.
Kick-Ass Boomers. So apparently, I looked like I was old enough to be a boomer. She just needed to find out whether or not I was kick-ass or not.
No, I was looking you and not sure because you look really good. So I asked because sometimes I think, oh, they're not possibly a boomer, and then they go, oh no, I'm a boomer. I'm like, good, then I can interview you. But
right. Do you know
on the low end, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah. Do you know what year boomers were born? What was the last year boomers?
1945, no, 46 to 64.
Oh, that makes me a boomer.
I'm totally a boomer. So, but you don't look it. So I did have to ask to make sure.
You did. You had to ask. So, but anyway, Terry Lohrbeer has this great podcast. She hosted me on her podcast last week called Kick-Ass Boomers, where it's all about business and boomers. Mm-hmm. So I love that. That's a good title too, Business and Boomers. So I'd already knew from just talking to her at the table that I wanted to have her on my podcast. And so we're here today because I know you've been an entrepreneur, you've been a business owner for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if I know anything about business owners, everyone has a milk crate moment. Right. So Terry, that's how I like to start. What was your milk crate moment that you're going to share with, or what is your milk crate moment you're going to share with us?
Well, I'll go back because we were talking a little bit right before we went live. My milk crate moment, I guess maybe it really does go all the way back to when I had cancer at 66. Because at that point, I knew that I wanted to start something new and do something different. I didn't want to be a realtor until 80 years old. And yet I knew that I needed to earn money maybe till I was 75 or 80, but I didn't want to be a realtor. So I thought, while I was recovering from my cancer, I was listening to podcasts. I would walk because exercise is key to getting better, and I would listen to podcasts. And then
hold on. I want to ask, what was your favorite podcast you were listening to at that point?
I was listening to John Lee Dumas, who's a business podcast. Excellent podcast. And I was listening to all his ideas of how to do business. But then while I'm listening, I'm thinking, I could do that. I love to talk to people. A podcast is perfect for me. So that's when the podcast idea came into my head. And I thought I have to start it now. So when I'm ready to retire from real estate, I already have an audience built up. I didn't want to wait and do it later. I thought I can do them at the same time. So I started my podcast 3 years ago, and I'm just getting ready to retire from real estate. As soon as my house sells, I'll be moving to Florida, and then I'm done. Real estate will be behind me. But I've been doing it for 20 years, so it's been a long time. But I do think my milk crate moment was probably when I had cancer, and I just knew I didn't want to go back and be a realtor forever. I wanted to do something different. And I don't remember if I told you this or not. I love Zig Ziglar. I just love him. And I wanted to be like him when I was younger. I wanted to be a female Zig Ziglar, but it was hard to break into that business. You needed a ton of money back then. You had to print out all, your materials, and you had to rent halls. And it was just a difficult thing to do. But when I started thinking podcasts, I'm like, I'm similar to Zig Ziglar. I'm doing it through a podcast, and it's so easy. Anybody can do it. It really is easy. So for boomers out there thinking about it, you have an idea you want to share with people. A podcast is so inexpensive and easy to get your point across to people.
So, let's talk about that. And maybe we'll take this and make it about podcasting today.
Okay.
Because I know you and I, we were talking about that, and it's somebody said that's fantastic, right?
Yeah,
so,
I see it.
I don't know if it was talking about podcasts or your story. I'm not sure what it was. But you and I are so different on how we run our podcasts, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about yours first, and then I'm
Right.
going to come in and give the four words that I have to say about mine.
Right.
So tell us what is it that you really love best about podcasting, and then I'm going to ask you questions about it. Okay.
Right. I just love talking to people and connecting. You meet the most amazing people on a podcast. There's so many amazing kick-ass boomers out there. And I never would have met them without this podcast. And I wouldn't have met you had I not been at the podcast convention. You meet
Exactly.
so many wonderful people. And that just keeps me energized. And it's part of what keeps me young. It really is.
So
The
let me just say,
connections. Yep.
that's my favorite part too about
Yep.
podcasting is that I get to talk to different people. I get to hear their stories, right?
Yes.
And for me,
Yes.
it's that milk crate moment is what is that piece that like changed things for you, or you decided that I'm not going to quit. I've been like, I'm not a quitter, right?
Right.
My first client that hired me, that paid me,
Mhm.
followed me for 8 years. That was my first client, 8 years. How many people would stay
Wow.
in a business for 8 years if you hadn't made any money,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
I'm
Yep.
just yeah. I apparently I don't like change. So anyway, all right. What's the next thing you love about podcasting?
Um, I guess just the stories that I'm hearing from people and then the options it gives me because I can still after I'll always be doing podcasting, but the next thing I want to do is add events where I can meet people in person. So it was so great going to a podcast convention, but I want to have a boomer convention where any baby boomers who want to come and meet me and greet some of my wonderful guests that I've had, I'll rent a hall once I'm down in Florida. I'll invite some of my great kick-ass boomers to come and talk to people, and then we'll be able to talk to other boomers because I think we need to keep connecting and talking. We're kind of, I think we feel like we're out there and we don't have anyone on our side or helping us. So by being able to come and connect, I just think it's going to be wonderful. Plus, I'll write a book. I'll be an author because I want to do that too down the road. So there's so many things you can do, but it started with the podcast.
Uh,
That's where it started.
I love that piece. I love the fact that there's some, you said something, and which I believe, I think I'm right about this. You're like, there's so many people who don't know what to do, right? And
Yep.
I think you're not one of them.
Oh no, I'm not
No.
one of them.
I can tell you've never been without something to do.
No, and I always have too many things in my head. So you have to pick and choose what is closest to your heart. Where is your passion? Because that's what you want to follow, your passion. Because then on the days when things aren't working so well and you're having a hard time, you won't give up because it's your passion. So it's really important to pick a passion that you have.
I do think that that's so true as we get older, right? And we move into our late 50s, early 60s, especially. And
Yes.
that was it for me when I hit my early 60s. By the way, I'm still in my early 60s. Just want to make that clear.
Lucky for you, I'm 73, just so everyone knows out there.
But when you hit that, there's a couple things that happen. Number one is now my mom my mom passed at 68. So she started this and she'd been an entrepreneur pretty much the whole time I was growing up. But at 68, she just stopped, right?
Oh.
I'm sorry, at about 58, she just stopped.
Oh.
And that, right? She didn't want to go anywhere. She didn't want to do anything. She didn't want a job. She just was like, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. So I stayed away from mama because she was never happy, right?
Right. And that's the kiss of death when you do that. When you stop, then you're not going to be around. That's my message to boomers. Get off the couch. You have to keep doing something, but it's got to be something that excites you.
Right.
So the fact that she stopped, that was not good.
Right. And I'm 64 and I'm working because I freaking love what I do.
Yes.
And I don't want to stop. And my husband's asked me, God, it asked me about a year or so ago. He's like, so when do you think you're going to retire? I'm like, retire? I just basically feel like I got into what I'm supposed to do for my life's purpose, right?
Yes.
Which has been about almost 8 or 9 years. No, it's been longer than that. It's been since 2006. So, so for me, it is like I work with women who are like me, who are in their late 50s, early 60s, even into their mid 70s or late 70s,
Right.
who know they don't want to stop and they want to keep going because they know that there's their purpose is not complete yet. I don't think
Right.
we should die. I don't think we should quit until we know our purpose is complete,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
True.
hopefully it's on almost the last day of our lives, right?
Right. Right.
Exactly. So I do love that about. All right, what else do you love about podcasting? Then I'm going to tell you what I love. So tell me what you do in your podcast.
Well, what I do is I do my research ahead of time. So I'm researching the people I'm going to talk to. I come up with some questions. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. Sometimes you don't need them. The guests will just start talking and we just go on. It's like a conversation. So I'll kind of interject, oh, yeah, I had that happen to me too. Or, yeah, I've done that. A lot of them will have gone through cancer. So we talk about the cancer process. A lot of them have done a lot of the same things. So sometimes I need questions, sometimes I don't, but I want them there as a crutch. Because sometimes you'll get a guest that is like, just doesn't talk. They're not like me. They don't want to talk. So you've got to pull things out of them. So I do have
those are my 8-minute podcasts.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to listen. If you don't want to talk and you don't have anything you want to add to the conversation,
Right.
then thank you for
We're
being
done.
here. Bye-bye.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that. So you're doing that. So what's the back end look like for what do you do on the front end and what do you do on the back end of the podcast?
So the front end is all the research before we start. I do my my podcast on Zoom. So we just do a little pre-chat. We talk a little bit, then I hit the record button. And then when we're done, I stop recording. And then we do a little bit more chatting. I let them know when I think it'll be live and all of that. And then after that, I do send mine off to an editor. So he edits it, but I don't really think there's a lot of editing that needs to be done. So I probably don't have to do that, but I have been doing that. And that is the most expensive part of the podcast, the editing. And then, I have a Calendly account set up. So then when someone wants to be on the podcast, I send them the Calendly and they can pick a time and a date. I pay for the Zoom because I'm usually on for over 45 minutes. The whole podcast isn't that long, but we're on the Zoom call. So I need the extended account for the Zoom and then the editing. And then that's it. I do upload it myself onto Lisbon. Lisbon is a company that shoots it out to all the podcasts. So once I put it up on Lisbon, it goes everywhere. So, Spotify, Apple, everybody has it. It just goes everywhere.
Awesome.
So then that's all I have. But then I do every week, all week long, I'm on social media promoting the podcast for that week. So that's where a lot of time does come in because I spend the entire week promoting whoever was the podcast for that week.
Awesome. And this week, I think it's me.
It's you. Yes.
Me, right. So I will share the podcast that I did in my social media.
Okay.
I will get around. I told you my husband had surgery on Monday when it come out. So I will get that shared this week. And as long as you're promoting me, I might as better get it out there. Right.
Right. So, and that's another thing I love about podcasting. We make our own schedules. If something comes up, I don't have to call the boss and say, oh, my husband's having surgery. I won't be in on Monday. We're making our own schedule. So we can just juggle whatever we have to. You were sick. So, you did the things that had to be done, but the rest of it will get done later. That's another thing I love about it.
Well, that's what I love about being an entrepreneur and being fully in charge of my own time and stuff. All right. So is there anything else you do? Show notes or what do you do any of that?
I don't do any show notes, but I did hear Apple Podcast is going to start doing them. So they'll take, because they've got the whole podcast there, they'll start making show notes. So there's a lot of companies that are going to start doing that automatically. What I do is I share my my guest bio, any of their links. So if someone wants to go hop back on to like Apple or whatever they are, you just click on the picture and all that will come out, the bio, the links, that if they want to contact the guest, they can. So, but I don't spend a lot of time doing that.
I love it. Listen, we've got a few listeners on here. So if you have anything, a question for Terry that you would like to ask her about podcasting, please do. So, because I'm going to share what I love about podcasting.
Good.
Right. And how much work I put into it. Okay.
Okay.
So number one, you said you do research. I don't do any research. Right? Like if I ask you to fill out a form, and for me, it's just a conversation, right?
Right,
I don't do
right.
any research. As a matter of fact, I think you were in there when I did my talk, right?
Yes. Yes, I was.
I started my talk at Podfest that said, you know what I love best about podcasting is you make a ton of money, right? You have so much free time. There's no research, and you create an amazing life for yourself. And everybody, 100% of the people in the audience
Right.
go,
What is she talking about?
yeah, what is she talking about? And I'm like, wait, is it just me? Right? I'm not making any money from my podcast. I
Right.
don't do any research.
Right.
It has nothing to do with adding to my joyous life, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
just something that I think is fun and I think is interesting. But you guys, I'm sure you can tell, I put very little time into my podcast, right? Can you hear my dog barking?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't care that my dog barks. Right?
Right.
I don't care that she barks. She lives here, and this is how we all live all the time. Her
Right.
job is to tell me somebody's at the door.
Right.
Right? Am I going to get up and go find out who it is? No.
No.
There's two other people living here. They can go find out while I'm doing my podcast. Right.
Right.
So for me, there's no research. I don't edit anything. And man, listen, if you listen to a few of my early podcasts, you're like, oh, honey, you should have edited that.
You should have edited.
Right. But no editing. I do have a calendar link, and I do talk to everybody first. I don't use Zoom for this. I use Restream.
Right.
Because it connects to some of my social media channels as well. And you connected your channels. So now that's being able to go live. So all of you who are here, the three of you that are here, this is live, right? We're doing this live. So if you have a question for Terry, pop that, or for me, like if you want to know how to live a kick-ass life, podcasting, just ask.
Right.
Upload. I don't upload that at all. I have somebody who I think she uploads it.
Right. Right.
They asked me, they're like, how many downloads do you get? I'm like, don't have a clue.
Right.
I have no idea. I don't know, maybe 1, 2 a week. I don't know.
Right.
No idea. And I don't promote it. Right. I don't promote my podcast.
Right.
So you win. I'm just going to say that you win podcasting.
Right.
So, but I do think it is, no matter what you do, I think it's a good thing to be out there in the public,
right?
Sharing what you do. And I hope that people do find your story and other stories. Bailey, knock it off. I do hope that they find these to be inspirational and motivational and educational.
Yes. Yes.
I wish I knew. So somebody just put in the comments, Jean Allen Kuhn, I love your attitude. I love you, but I wish I knew who you were so that I could say, I'm so sorry that you had to hear me say that out loud, right? About how little I work at my podcast, right? And it's because honestly, it's one of those things that I do to amuse myself. So, but if I can bring value to the marketplace, in the lessons that other entrepreneurs had to learn in order to succeed, that's my goal, right? If I can share lessons of people who really Nancy Spano. Oh my God. I love that. Love that you're here. I'm going to call you right after. Oh, I have a call right after this. I'm going to call you today. So Nancy, thank you. Okay. So any questions? Not any questions. Let's go back to podcasting. If you couldn't podcast, what would you do once you get to, by the way, this hot chick is moving to the Villages. We all know about the Villages. I have a sister who lives at the Villages, right? In Florida, right? So if you have a village question, ask Terry that. But if you couldn't podcast, what would you do?
You know, I don't know. I haven't really given it a lot of thought. Because once I found podcasting, that was my answer. I didn't look for any other answer. So, I mean, I love real estate because I love working with people, helping them, but I'm doing it through the podcast because I don't want to. Real estate has changed a lot, and I didn't want to continue doing it in Florida because you have to be ready to show people a house at the drop of the hat. They could call you and say, I need to see this and I need to see it now. So you can't really have your own schedule. Podcasting you can, which is what I love. I set up my times when I record. I do my research when I feel like it. I upload it onto Lisbon, usually Sunday night while I'm watching my favorite shows. So it's not like a big deal. It doesn't even take me that long. So I don't know that I would, I just locked onto this and I'm loving it. So there's no reason to change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So
yeah.
Terry, you have been such a fun guest today. I feel like this is the first time on my podcast I could literally be who I really am. Right.
Oh.
So
and it's fun because we are so much alike. You're 10 years younger, which is nice, but it took me a while to get to the point where I'm done with real estate. I just want to go to the villages, have fun, and podcast. So it's taken me a while, but I'm there. I'll be down there within the next 6 months, and then life will change, and I can't wait. It's going to be way more fun.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lie. If you like the lifestyle that the villages live, my sister loves it, right?
Yep.
It is a fun place to live.
Yep.
It would be a very fun place to live. That's not my jam.
Right. And it's not everybody's. And the only reason I want to go there, it's so big. There are so many people you can connect with.
Yes.
So there's somebody for everybody. And there's all kinds of clubs, and I love to swim.
Over 3,000.
Yes.
3,000 clubs at the villages.
And there's 100 swimming pools. And I love to swim. So I'll be able to swim.
Golf courses.
Yes, yes. So there's going to be, my point is at 73, I have to stay very active, very engaged in order to stay healthy. I want to make it into my 90s. I really do. But I know that my father lived till 96, but he walked 7 miles a day. Ooh. He was very social. He did all kinds of things. So being social is important too. People think, that's important to being healthy, staying social, doing something to keep your mind active, always wanting to learn new things. That's another thing that a lot of my guests are telling me. They're very open to learning new things like this. Like I might start doing more live streaming now that I've done it. So learn new things, do new things, and you'll be happier and healthier. So that's the whole point of moving down there, to be healthier.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you, the last thing I always ask people is, what's your very favorite business tip that you can leave with somebody, or your very favorite piece of advice that you could leave another entrepreneur with?
It's just look for your passion and then live it. You really need to live your passion. That's the most important thing. If you do that, everything else will fall into place.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being here. You're welcome. Just delighted that number one, that I got to do your podcast. By the way, watch my Facebook page. I will be posting my podcast that I did last week with Terry, and can't wait to share that because I remember it being fun. Yes. So I don't know if it really came out.
They're always fun for me. I always have a good time.
I agree. It's always fun for me. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. We'll stay in touch. Okay.
Thank you so much. We absolutely will.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.